Welcome to part 2 of our mini-series on the CRIS framework. Today, Megan Troyer will be featured and we'll discuss ways to engage students with content.
On the back of your pink sheet, it's blank. And I want to set up some reminders so that we don't have to pull out our notes. Because I know you guys hate doing that.
After preparing her students to learn, Megan's students got right to work.
You need to match an equation with the information, with the graph, and then with solutions.
To engage students in practicing linear inequalities, Megan created a cut and paste card matching activity only. There was no cutting or pasting.
Goes with uppercase letter. Good. Then hop over here and find your graph.
How do you ask students to engage with your content?
I always try and have students be the forefront of the conversation and have them be the ones that are discovering the information. It's really hard for me to just sit and lecture at them because then I know that they're not actually doing the math, they're just listening to the math or they're watching the math happen.
What should a teacher's role be during these engagement activities?
When I'm doing these sorts of activities, I always try and take a back seat. I'm circulating the room. My co-teacher, if I'm in a co-taught class, is also circulating the room. And we're there just to assist, to answer questions, to maybe guide the students for their participation, or just, hey, I noticed you're kind of going down a weird path, let's bring it back. Never telling them, do this, do this, do this, letting them kind of explore and have trial and error.
How do you develop engagement strategies or activities?
I take the basics of what I had, which was maybe a worksheet or just questions that I wanted them to do, and I just find some sort of way to craft it up a little bit so that it's really hard to ask any teenager just sit and do this worksheet. So I try and find some quirky little way that I can get them to do the same material, but maybe just in a different format.
So what was the purpose of today's lesson and how did you apply that crafted up strategy?
So our learning target was that we were to graph inequalities, and so the purpose of that, or the steps of that, is that they have to solve, they have to identify the slope, the intercept, they have to graph, and then they have to identify solutions. And so instead of having those be the directions and just giving them a list of 6 problems, I found all of those pieces prior and I made it a cut and paste activity, but instead of having scissors and glue and all of that, I just had them kind of write it out on an answer sheet, and then I actually kept the answers tagged to my lanyard, so I didn't have to carry around a piece of paper or a clipboard. I just had a really quick cheat sheet so that I knew what matched up with what.
So since you always try to craft it up and make activities interesting, engaging, what are some of your other favorite ways to engage students in their learning?
I'm always about trying to figure ways that I don't have to spend a lot of time outside of school making the activities, but they're still really engaging for students. So easy ones that I've always done are card passes, where you can take just a worksheet or anything and put them on little note cards. Every kid just has to have one at the same time, and so then they end up passing it around, and then it's really funny because all of them start looking for like number 13 and they're like, I can't find it. And so then it's just another way to get them involved with each other and then also with the material. Around the rooms are a really common one that I know a lot of teachers do, where you just post the questions around and then they have to work their way through. Stations. I'm always taking basics that I had from when I first started teaching, which was a lot of lecture and worksheets, and just updating them so that I'm not starting from scratch every time.
What type of environment do these engaging strategies or lessons create in your classroom?
The environment is that we're all kind of part of a team and that I'm not the holder of all the information. I like to think that students bring their own backgrounds to their learning, and so they're able to share with their classmates and it becomes very student-centered. I'm able to have some direct instruction when needed, because with math they don't know everything, and so I have to give them some sort of information, but I give them just enough to get the ball rolling. The environment takes high school energy where they're very giggly and crazy and lots of movement, and it harnesses that in a positive manner.
To learn more about these engagement strategies, visit us in the Idea Pad. Also, next week we will be exploring ways to transform student learning with Chris Superstar, English teacher Kelly Taylor. See you next week!